Well, let's talk about safety first, gentlemen. You're handling black powder, which is a Class A explosive. This is the way it's been described to me. Now, I've gone online and I've tried to find a definition of a Class A explosive, and believe it or not, I can't find it. The closest thing that I can come to is the Department of Transportation identified it as that, which is a substance that will rapidly combust if exposed to flame or static electricity or something that will initiate this. I wasn't expecting to be recorded here.
Always expect the unexpected.
So, when you're handling black powder, always remember that this is an explosive. And the way that you should handle it is never in a bulk quantity. Have the bulk quantity where you are introducing it to a firearm. So what you want to do is always have it prepackaged in the little paper tubes that we all use. So that being said, Bill, you're going to have to help me out here because I'm not very good. I'm not very good at it. When you're loading the firearm, you're going to take the paper cartridge out. You're going to tear the end off of it. You're going to pour it down the muzzle. You never want to have your hand directly over the muzzle of the firearm because you can have what's known as a cook-off. Now, a cook-off is when there are embers or debris that after the discharge of the weapon can be smoldering in the bottom of the barrel. When you pour the powder in there, it can ignite the powder. So if you have your hand over the muzzle, you're going to get burned. So you tear, you pour. You never use your rammer when you're in a battle scenario because the rammer can actually become a projectile. So they don't allow you to use the rammer when you're out in the field. So you can tap it a little bit, bring it up, take your cap out, prime the weapon, and wait for the command. And fire. Now, you'll always want to try to be cognizant if your gun is going off. Because sometimes the cap, there'll be debris in the flash channel between the cap and the chamber, and the weapon won't go off. If you pour more powder in there, you're going to eventually build up enough powder in the gun where it's going to be unsafe. The breech could blow. Definitely be a loud boom. So try to be cognizant of that. You always want to have safety in mind. They're always going to ask you to pop the cap, which is when you're on the line, you want to try to make sure that your weapon, the flash channel is clear. And what they normally do is you'll point the muzzle down near the ground, the grass or the dirt, and you're going to snap the cap without putting any powder in the gun. And you should be able to see the grass move, or the dust will kick up down by the muzzle where the concussion comes out. If you don't see that, then there's something blocking the cap to the main powder charge, and you have to clear that out. One of the tools that we use to clear that out is a vent pick, which I always carry for convenience in my cap. And you can cock the hammer back, and run the pick through the nipple, and you can clear out the obstruction. So you pop your cap, and then you're pretty certain that you're going to be safe to fire. One thing I noticed is when you're in a battle scenario, the officers will all be shouting at you, "Come on, boys, pour it into them, pour it into them." That's great, but don't pour it into them if it means that you're going to fumble through the steps or not load your weapon properly. Safety is always the first consideration. You're going to go through your steps. Make sure that you've poured the powder down. Make sure you've capped your weapon. When you fire, make sure that there's nobody right in front of you. When you fire, try to make sure that you feel the gun go off, or you hear a gun go off, or you see the muzzle flash, and then you go to reload. Don't take the cap off. You see a lot of people will cock the hammer back and take the cap off, and then go ahead and load. Always leave the spent cap on. That's the last thing that you're going to do. You fire, you go back to the load position, you take your cartridge out, you leave the spent cap on. You go through the load, and then at the last thing, you take the old cap off and put a new cap on, and then shoot. This helps to smother any embers that might be in the breech, so that the cook-off won't happen to it. What am I missing?
That's basically it. Just emphasize what Dave said about putting your hands over the muzzle, because a lot of us get complacent with the fact that, oh, it's just blanks, there's no compression. I actually saw a guy once, he had the soft fleshy web of his hand over the muzzle, and in this case it was a faulty lock, and it discharged and it actually tore through the flesh. So there's a substantial amount of power that comes out of these things, even though there's no projectile. Just the 60 to 80 grains of powder, it's a lot. So that's probably the primary thing, is keep your face, everything, and also keep it away from the guy next to you. You don't, sometimes you're farting around, you're waving around, you forget where the end is pointing. So again, safety, just constantly be aware of where that muzzle is pointing, what it's pointing at.
Another thing in the safety thing, if you have a misfire and you can't get the weapon to fire, don't put a load down. If you've tried picking it out, you can't get it, it's still misfiring, you really should step out of the line, and there's always going to be people, officers in the back, and you can step back and go over to one of the officers and say, I have a misfire, and the officer will try to clear it with you, and if you can't get the thing to fire, then pretty much you're out of the ball game. You can't, you can't carry on and expect the thing's going to go off down the road, because it's not going to happen. Safety is always first.
Takes you right back to the cleaning aspect of it, right? Right. The clean ones tend to go off pretty irregularly.
Well, we should go there.
I guess the loading sequence is handled by drill.
Does everybody here know the steps? Because I was actually at an event last year with an officer who didn't know the 9 loading steps.
Where's Max? Right here.
Max knows the 9 steps.
Okay.
You know the 9 steps. Well, the 9 steps were drilled into the recruits until they could recite them in their sleep. And it was a sequence of steps that you went through loading the mini ball with a paper cartridge. And the reason that they were drilled incessantly on this was because if you miss a step, the gun's not going to work. And you don't happen to have a round on you?
Anyway, you want to be on autopilot.
But the steps were load. The soldier would bring his gun down in front of him. Handle cartridge. The soldier would reach back into his cartridge pouch with his thumb and first finger.
Actually, I do. It's got a ball.
Oh, that's a ball. Oh, that's great.
Here's a blank.
I'll go with this. Actually, this is the right ammo for this thing. He'd bring it out. This is load, handle cartridge. Comes out, comes up to his mouth. Tear cartridge. Soldier would tear the paper tail off of the cartridge, spit it out, and bring it to the front of the gun. Charge cartridge. Dump the powder down. In the case of a mini ball, he would remove the mini ball completely from the paper, insert it into the muzzle. Draw the rammer out, smartly turning it so he doesn't knock the guy next to him in the head. Get it ready. Ram cartridge. You ram the cartridge down, making sure that it was seated on the powder. Return rammer, bring it back out. Return it using his pinky. Nothing is ever over the muzzle. Prime, you bring it up, come to the T formation, bringing the weapon above his cap pouch. And if you do this, it puts you in a prime position to draw the cap. Then prime, put the cap on, and come to the ready position. When the officer could look down the line and see everyone at the shoulder arms, he knew everyone was loaded and ready to go. Then it was ready. You come to the T formation with your feet, aim, fire, bang. Then there would either be recover or fire at will, and then they would go through this whole process. Now, seasoned troops in the field wouldn't have to have those commands done by the numbers because they knew them so well. It was just load, boom, they're ready to go.